Moving right along into adipose tissue. Adipose tissue are lipid, and there's a distinguishing difference between white fat and brown fat, right? And the brown fat uses lipid fuels to heat the bloodstream. The white fat is using the energy for everything else. The white fat also is going to function to do shock absorption and insulation. So there's a movement towards exercising away brown fat versus white fat, where you're storing, or where you're taking your energy from. And the concept is that you would exercising in the cold. So in the winter, going outside to exercise in the gym would help to burn the brown fat as opposed to the white fat, because you would need to heat your blood first before the rest of the body could utilize the energy. So yeah, so that's the concept there. So adipose tissue. Let's look at it. This is great because you can see how the nucleus is pushed to the side with the lipid. And again, its main function is to be a reserve fuel of energy and insulation. It does do cushioning and support as well. But if you're an acrobat and you're going to land hard, you're going to be doing a backflip, or let's go, you're an acrobat, so you're doing a triple backflip and you don't quite make it around the third time, so you're going to land right on your glutes, right? So having a little bit of fat for shock absorption would be good, but what you really want is a lot of muscle tone too. So just saying. So here we are. We talked about areolar, adipose, so one more in this category, reticular. Oh, and we talked about it already, so we're going to move on to dense connective tissues. So we're moving into this category. All right, we have dense, regular, irregular, and then the elastic. Okay, so tensile strength. Tensile strength is that pulling, like a pulling effect on the tissue. That's tension. It's kind of like stretching as well, in the sense that it's a pull that it's going to resist pulling. Not that this has a lot of stretch in it. It's rather that it has a withstanding against, so it resists pulling. Okay, whether it's tension or stretching. So the collagen fibers are closely packed in a parallel to the direction of pull. So if you have a ligament running proximal to distal, right, it's going to withstand tension in the proximal to distal directions. There's a little bit of stretch, right, allowed in this, which is why they appear wavy. So there's a little bit of give in that. So we got the fibroblasts again, making or manufacturing the collagen fibers and the ground substance. Not a lot of cells around there. It's mostly the fibers themselves, not highly vascularized. And our example are tendons and ligaments. Always a friendly reminder, tendons attach muscle to bone and ligaments attach bone to bone. So I was speaking of a ligament earlier when I was visualizing the dense regular connective tissue in the ankle running proximal to distal. Here's a ligament here because it's running from bone to bone. This is a ligament in the shoulder. This would be this is the acromion process, and this would be the clavicle. So this is the acromion clavicular ligament, so named. And here we have the tendon of the biceps brachii. So this, you can kind of see the belly of the muscle right about here. This word aponeurosis, if you see it right here, aponeurosis is it's like a flat. It's more like a flat connective tissue. You have it around the wrist is a really good example. There's kind of this band of aponeurosis that is around your wrist. What about irregular? These ones are closely packed. Again, the collagen fibers, a bit thicker though. they're forming sheets and as opposed to a more rope-like bundle. Okay, so um, that's the irregular pattern. When you have everything running parallel, it becomes more rope-like. We find this in the dermis, which is a specific layer of the integument. We have it in our joint capsules and in covering some organs. So right here is this fibrous joint capsule. So when I was talking about aponeurosis previously, it kind of has this, it actually kind of has this look to it, but it's a lot thinner. This is a lot thicker in the joint here. So you get tension withstanding in different directions. You can imagine that that's really important for a long bone that has such degrees of freedom, right? 180 degrees in each plane. What about elastic tissue? Well, a lot of elastic, which means it can stretch and then come back to its original shape. Why would this be found in the arteries, the large arteries of the body? Why would you need a lot of elastic recoil in arteries, in the arterial wall? What would happen? Hmm? We're thinking, we're pausing, we're still thinking. Walls of many large arteries. Why would that be? Hmm. We thought about it. Do we come up with an answer? It's because arteries need to stretch easily when the blood enters. So you're gonna have a high volume with the blood pressure coming out, so blood's going to go into the artery, so into the artery, boom, it gets flooded out, and that arterial wall needs to accommodate that influx of fluid rapidly. So it has to have a large stretch and then large recoil as well. Oh, here it is. The aorta is a perfect example of this, right? So that's going to get real wide as the heart beats, boom, and it pumps out. So we made it through here. Then my guess is we're going to cartilage. Here we go. Cartilage. Chondrocytes, chondro meaning cartilage. Cytes are the cells that are going to be made of cartilage. Lacunae are little lakes. We'll look at those. There are a lot of water. There's a lot of collagen fibers and some sugar proteins. Tough yet flexible. That's their characteristics. And they don't have they don't have a vascularization, so they get their nutrients from this surrounding cartilage. Okay, we have hyaline, elastic, and fibro. Most abundant, shiny bluish glass, tips of long bones, nose, trachea, larynx, cartilage of the ribs. The elastic fibers, the elastic cartilage, right, has the same concept that there's more wiggle, there's more stretch, there's more ability to bend and return to its original shape. Fibro, it's going to be a bit denser, a bit firmer, providing some cushion and shock absorption. So that would be in the intervertebral discs in the knee. Here is a chondrocyte in a lacuna. So this circle spot is the lacuna, is the lake in which it resides. Out here we have the matrix, and in the matrix embedded are those elastic fibers. Here's an example of an ear, which has elastic cartilage in it. Here's an example of fibro. The intervertebral discs in the knee were our example. Again, just more fibers. Okay, what about this? Avascular cartilage loses its ability to divide as we age, and so injuries heal slowly. So what this means is that that when we have to do growth and repair as a young person or as a child even, that rate of growth and repair can happen faster. It happens less quickly as we age. So it's really important to protect our bodies as we get older, and we can always combat aging by taking really good care of our bodies. I like to call it the biosuit of our biology suit, right? It's this thing in which we exist that we need to approach as a machine, right? It's a living, breathing, working machine. But we do have to put the right things in, get the right things out, exercise it in the right way, move it in the right oil, the oil, put oil in it, do an oil change. Like you just really gotta pay attention to how you're using it and the way you use it. Um, you know, it's going to affect how much care you need to put into it as well. But what about ossification? Cartilage becoming ossified, it's that these osteoblasts deposit in the space where the cartilage would be. The osteoblast would deposit its cellular buildup, and you would get bone instead of bend. And that will affect range of motion, for example, if you have bone where there was bend. So we got bone. Moving on, speaking of bone. So we just talked about cartilage. There's 3 types. Now we're going to get into a whole different category, which is our bone. Osseous tissue supports and protects, right? It is just great stuff. It does store fat and synthesize blood. That's why we have, marrow transplants come out of the bone. Here it is. Here's the central canal I promised you for the vascularization, and it's pervasive throughout this. So when we get to the next section, we're going to look at this in detail. What about blood? Okay, so it's just cells and matrix basically, and the red blood cell, the RBC, is the most common type in there. There are some WBCs and platelets as well. And then the fibers are soluble proteins. So they are fluid, but they can become right harder and turn into a clot. So they can help in that whole process, which we'll look at very soon. And their main function is to transport and carry nutrients. Here's a look at it. There's your RBC. Fancy word for RBC is erythrocyte, right? So this beginning just means red. And here you can see, right, the red blood cell within. Okay, let's pause here.